So I'll start then with questions. I would love to hear about how your father got started making baskets in the first place.
Well,
Would you like a chair?
no, I'm good. Way back before the boats came from Hyannis, we went from Woods Hole, as some of you know. And it was a 3-hour trip. And you'd see the ladies with their dark Reyes baskets. And everybody was always fascinated by how they're made. And nobody really knew the secrets.
Before you go any further, could you tell about what year?
Oh, we're probably talking,
50s?
yeah, 55-ish.
Okay.
And on. So you'd get on the boat and you'd see the occasional lady, because they weren't as many as, and they were beautiful with the carved ivory or whale tooth, which it usually ended up being. And, you know, there was always, how do they do that? And one of my father's friends down here was Paul Whitten, who wrote, I think there's a little brochure that you have, a little book here at it was an interview with Reyes. So he went and interviewed Reyes, and he wrote this little book with pictures, and he learned the secrets. And I think the biggest secret in a Nantucket basket is the groove, which you all know. But it's kind of hard to figure out that there's a groove there. So Reyes showed my father, Reyes showed Whitten what he was doing. I don't think it was an official lesson that he had, but he showed him what he was doing and how he was doing it. And so he came to my father, and my father was a machinist for General Electric, and he was a very clever man. He was, you know, precise. And Paul Whitten was a school principal, I believe, someplace. And so he explained roughly what was happening, and my father took it from there, and he started experimenting. And I think in the display out there, there's an early one of my father's baskets, which is really crude. It's wide ribs, it's round, because he had to turn his own mold. He carved his own it's a little teeny whale, I think, on it. And everything was crude, to say the least. But he was somebody that with very limited basic instruction created a basket. And then he started refining. And he figured out how to make molds, because this is one of his molds. There's kind of a mathematics to it, how to make an oval. And everybody that was making baskets, like Stevie Gibbs's molds, were different from from Jose's. Actually, Jose, I think, sometimes free-handed baskets.
He did.
And, you know, that's amazing. But my father started making the molds, and his interpretation of the mold and the percentage of centerpiece to the rest of the basket was a lot different than other people. Not that one is good or one is bad, but and he came up with the handle, the field appeal handle, and he started using white oak. We live up in Linfield outside of Boston in this white oak out in the woods, and he would go out and cut down a tree, and he came up with the idea of freezing what he didn't use. So our family freezer was full of oak. You know, a few frozen peas and corn and stuff, but typically there was hunks of oak in there. And so it started, and then when I graduated from college, I finished a basket that my sister-in-law had started. And then my father gave me some more stuff, and I made another open basket, I think, for my mother. And I learned the basics, and then I made one, you know, with an oval with a lid, and it just kept going and going. And as you know, as you know, it's kind of scary making your first basket, or is this fitting right? It doesn't look good. Have you got the ribs too tight? Are they straight? There's so many things that you worry about when you're making your first, or your first 10 baskets. And then after a while, you just really don't think about it that much. It's just trim, fit, so on. So that's basically how he got into it, and then I came along. And I was working for General Electric at the time, and when the first oil embargo hit, there's a few people here that might remember it as little children. I think it was 74, I lost my job at General Electric, and I had been making baskets and coming down in the summers and selling them. I'd come down, it was a weekend hobby type thing, and I'd come down and I would sell them to gift shops, and I'd take that money and put it in the bank, and I was making them, and I had lost my job. I was trying to sell my prior year's crop of baskets, and a woman, Mary Woodrum, down at the packet shop, the first shop in Old South Wharf, said to me, "Would you like to come into the shop and work? Sell your baskets next year." So I was on unemployment. I used the time to build up an inventory of baskets and sat there, came in, sold that summer. And I made just about as much money as I would have at General Electric. And so it was interesting. I think for an 8-inch basket, I think I was selling for $250. And if you look at that Reyes, Paul Whidden, on the back of the prices are what, $40, $50 for, it's funny. So that's how my father got into it and how I got into it. And it was, he learned the basics, so what his interpretations, we nail every rib. As I said, this oak rib top, oak rib bottom, and
Little doodads on the bottom.
well, yeah, but that came later. The little escutcheon pins on the bottom. But it's
And you call them ribs, not staves.
yeah, I call them ribs.
And you nail every rib?
Yeah, every rib. Actually, Reyes nailed every rib. You just can't see it. If you take off a Reyes rim, the outer rim, he has little tacks that are on every rib. Every rib that isn't got a nail going all the way through. Which is, it surprised me the first time I saw it. Another thing that you'll find with a Reyes basket that you don't really realize is some of the old ones, they'll have a handle on them. But if you turn it upside down and look where the handle goes, it'll have leather, which indicates it had a shoulder strap at one time on it. And that's kind of fascinating too, because shoulder straps disappeared totally for a long, long time. And then I started bringing them back, because women would come in and they'd say, "Oh, I don't want to walk around like this. Or it's uncomfortable," or whatever. And so I started doing some shoulder straps, and then the kidneys came along. And the kidneys were, nice innovation. Because these baskets, if you put a shoulder strap on this, as you all know, they just roll.
Yeah.
And a kidney still will move around a little, but it really sets up there a lot better. Oh, there goes part of my audience.
Sorry.
Okay, bye-bye, hon.
This one's being kind of
Yeah.
out of pants. The little one, not the big one.
Oh. So that was kind of fun, I think, when those shoulder straps came along, because it opened up a new segment of the market that we really hadn't touched before.
Is yours a kidney?
Yeah.
Yeah, the kidney is nice.
So did you start the kidney? Who started?
No, Glen Ann actually did. what was her name? Glen Ann? Elliot, yeah. She had the,
This, didn't you?
well, yeah, but that's just a variation on a theme, kind of. Glen Ann came with the shoulder strap and on the kidney, and they were made by the Andersons. And then she tried what, excuse me, angered everybody. I was going to say something else, but angered everybody was the fact that she tried to get a patent on it. And I don't know whether she actually did or whatever, but
She did not.
yeah, but she was throwing her weight around and so on and trying to curtail everybody. So our original, my father made, the first one he did was basically took the 7-inch oval. This is an 8-inch, but he took the mold or the outline and just put a little indentation back there, which was all right for 7-inch. And then when I came along and wanted to increase the size of the basket, this is Judy's. That's very nice. Who did the scrimshaw?
David Lazarus.
Very nice. I had a couple of things that I wanted to do. I wanted as much curve as possible, and I wanted to limit the width so that it would sit better on the hip, not stick out too much. And I wanted the opportunity to make it as deep as possible, because you really got to have some depth to it because of the indentations in this, and I really wasn't looking forward to cell phones and everything else that we have now, but I was trying to, people doing vertical stuff, placing vertical stuff in their basket rather than, you know, horizontal piling that usually went along with that. And over the years, I've seen some baskets that are piled full of stuff. That's ridiculous what you women carry.
Why don't you show the one that Kathy brought in, Fleming, because that's
Oh, this is
really an early basket. Really.
this is a darling little basket. It has a Larry Vanneau scrimshaw, and it's one of mine. Has it got a date on it?
74.
74? 74?
74, that's why I want, yeah, look at it, take a look.
Wow.
See, a Larry stick, yeah. Let's see.
No, it has no date on
Oh,
it.
I thought it did on my phone.
Because 74 was that was when I was first starting. Oh,
Beauty.
that's a gorgeous little basket.
When did you stop using the chains?
The chains, this was something my father invented. It's really a sterling chain held on with like a little horseshoe of sterling silver that is there. And when most people, instead of pushing with your thumb out, most people, when they first get their basket, it's tight, and they start wiggling it, and all of a sudden, boom, and you're adding the weight of your hand going this direction on a sterling chain, and they would break. And the next summer, I'd have them come in, and the chain would be dangling, and I'd have to replace it. So I got Mike Bedell. I don't know if anybody remembers Mike.
I have one of those baskets in here.
Oh, do you? Yeah. He came in. I think he learned from his dad, too, or his grandfather. He came in, and we were talking about baskets, and he had a string on his basket. And I had tried to do string, but the best I could come up with was just a piece of string, wrap it around, tie a knot in it. And I said, Mike, how are you doing your strings? And a couple days later, he comes walking in with a drill, string, eye rings, and he shows me how you take the string. I don't know if anybody does their own strings here, but he tied the string, had little hooks and an eye ring, and he stood back and he squeezed his drill and went, and it tightened it up, and then he took it off and doubled it over and then went the opposite direction. And when the dust settled, basically, you had this. You know, it was wound. It looks very nice, and it had a loop at the end that you could slide the pin through, and then tied it off with another little piece of, and then super glued the knots. And from then on, I had something that was way more durable than this. You know, the sterling was just ridiculous, but it looked nice. Although, right now, this doesn't look that good.
That looks good.
Look how,
Needs to be polished.
yeah.
So you know that it's sterling.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
Beauty.
so, that's little tricks. Yes?
So in what ways, if any, besides I guess the string versus the sterling, do you differ from your dad's method?
He made a much better basket than I do. He could really, you know, when he was setting up a basket, it was meticulous. It was like a machine. You know, all the spaces were fabulous. He didn't really use that. I probably make a finer rib than he did, but you know, he was just. But he was doing it as a retired person, killing time more or less, making a few bucks off it, and as a hobby. Whereas, you know, I get X number of baskets a year that I have to make, and it's what can I say?
And how long did it take you on average to make a basket? I'm sure it varies with size, but
Well, I used to make them a lot quicker when I had 4 kids, and
You still have 4 kids.
I know it, but they're all independent. But I'm usually working on 2 baskets, one that I'm finishing and one that's coming in. And I usually tell customers 25 to 30 hours, and that's spread out over a week because you have your drying time and your finishes. And, you know, air like this is ridiculous for trying to do a finish. And then you've got carving, and, you know, everybody thinks that once you weave it, that's basically the end of the thing. And everybody here knows that, you know, you're not even halfway done.
right, the lashes.
You got to make the latches. You got to do all your finishes and fit the handle and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, my father made a beautiful, beautiful basket, and he did his own carving too. He because he was an outsider in the basket community, that nobody would carve for him really. So he started carving. He bought himself a elephant tusk. I don't know for how much money, but you know, probably less than $10 a pound. And then at one point, he went out to Urbana, Illinois. He had heard about some elephant tusks. I don't know whether it had something to do with the University of Chicago or just what, but he flew out to Urbana, Illinois, and he bought like 20 tusks, and then came home with them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I still have some of that stuff, as a matter of fact, and
His carvings are beautiful.
yeah, he did a good
Fine
job.
carvings, beautiful.
But he was, of course, he was, you know, he was a good carver. He was a good basic carver, but he wasn't the carver that Nancy was. You know, Nancy was just a fabulous carver. Oh, my goodness, if anybody has ever been in her shop, it's just...
Tell them a story about how somebody sold a silver basket to Scott. Remember she did the lobster?
Oh, yeah. I had a customer that she bought a 7-inch solid ivory top, and she took it to Nancy to do a carving. Next year she came in, and she literally had a lobster, a full lobster with the antenna and the little feet that Nancy had carved. It was absolutely incredible. It was...
She did it in two two
I-
things. Yeah, no, two pieces, so one piece broke.
I
You wouldn't have to do the other piece.
I didn't realize that. You
That's
have
how
more
it's put
information than I do, but I just looked at it, and the tentacles, the two little, they were there. And I looked at it, and I thought, it's impossible to carry this
And I
basket.
remember Nancy said that.
She'd never do another one.
She said she'd never,
Yeah.
if she did it, she should never do another one.
Yeah.
Right?
it was,
unbelievable.
It's really, I understand the plight of the elephant and everything, but some of the stuff that, the clusters of shells that they used to do, that it looked like somebody grabbed it and threw it on top of the basket. It was just fabulous stuff. Nancy used to do the cluster of shells, and then she'd have a little hermit crab, and the claws would be holding a little teeny island. Did everybody ever see that? But
Fabulous.
and the scrimshanders that are, when I first got here, there had to be 30 or 40 scrimshanders at different levels. Maybe not that. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but I'm thinking that. Let me rewind a little. In the 60s, when I first started business, there used to be probably, I bet you 30 different scrimshanders, making jewelry, and kids that had come from college. And boy, and now it's just Michael Vano. Leanne, I think, is out of it, isn't she? Dorothy Vieira used to do it. I don't think she does.
Lazarus is mostly into paint.
Yeah, Lazarus is mostly into paint. He'll do a little. Yeah.
Right.
And I've got a lady in Connecticut that's excellent, and Brian Kierkoff in Connecticut. No, I mean Rhode Island. Barbara Cullen and Brian Kierkoff. They're excellent scrimshanders. I had.
Show her that. That's
this is.
Barbara Cullen.
This is a Barbara. This is actually should I tell them the story?
Yeah, it's fine, but yeah, go ahead.
My father-in-law, Betsy's father, had done a portrait of her at 19. Betsy had sat for it. It was in profile. And so I said to Barbara, because I always wanted to do this, and I said to Barbara, I'm going to take a picture of Betsy, of the portrait, and then just put a mermaid's body on it.
It's not my body.
So that's what we ended up with.
Show the inside.
And then I had her do the back of the mermaid.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, it's a basket. Yeah.
So again, the scrimshan, Michael does a fabulous job. He's been doing it forever. He was in the shop with me for a long time. His brother Larry, who did that piece, was in the shop with me for a while. Larry was an artist. I always found scrimshanders to be, if they were really, really good, they were artists, and artists they hate to do the same thing over and over again. When we came up with the idea, I don't know if we originated it, but when we came up with the idea of a basket full of wildflowers, Larry, we could probably do 15 a year. Larry wouldn't do them. And then it was easy money for him. He just wouldn't do them. It was incredible. But Michael would do it. Yeah, Michael has got more of a business. He realizes that puts bread on the table. But no, the whole way that the baskets have gone. And I once made a basket that I thought was really cool, and it sat and sat and sat because it wasn't the traditional basket. And I thought it would sell like that, but it wasn't the traditional basket. So since then I've basically stuck to what sells and what is a traditional basket. I saw the poster, with that heart-shaped basket on it. Beautiful, very clever, with the arrow going through and today you'd probably sell one, but or a few. But it's, again, these are easier to make. I know how to make them. You don't have to,
So
Yes.
you've led me right into the question I was thinking about, which is, I guess, what's your favorite basket or purse to make? And I guess I'm gonna say it with the aspect of, if the market wasn't an object, because I know you're making to sell,
Yeah.
of course, but if you could make anything, would you rather make a round one? Would you rather make a hooded purse?
I like to kind of get challenged a little when somebody comes in with an idea that they'd like made into a basket. That's always fun because there's a mental thing going on. How are you going to shape it? You've got to make the mold. If it's a new shape, you've got to make the mold. You've got to make the rim mold. You've got to make the handle mold. So, there's a bunch of things that go through your mind that you have to think about before you actually make the basket.
Tell them about the picnic basket that came in before we figured.
Oh, wait.
Okay. I don't want to forget.
That I would not like to make. No, with custom.
Sounds like a good story too.
I used to make picnic baskets, and it was like that, and probably this deep, just an incredible amount of work. And I think I made 3 of them, but they were just huge, bulky. It's hard to keep them on your lap. I'm a lap weaver. I hold on my lap and I pull down like this. I don't know. There's some people go up with their thumbs. I don't know exactly how everybody does it, but and if I screw up and I go the other direction, it takes me forever because on my nest, my littlest basket is that big, and sometimes when I do it, I mess up and I do it the opposite way. And it's only about that much weaving, and the basket's about that. The mold is about that big around. It's just if I go in the opposite direction, it just screws me up totally. Anyways, back to your question. My least. I don't like to make these as much because of the concave. That's a little tough to weave. I think I'd probably like this basket the most. I've probably made the most of these in my days. It's just an 8-inch. Standard. I tell everybody this is probably my average basket. People come in, show me. This is what I'll point to if they're interested in a basket, what the prices are. And
do you still make nests?
yes, I want to make a nest or a couple nests for next year. I make a 10 basket nest, and which is 1 larger than this and 3 smaller.
Can you hold them up?
So I have an 8 basket nest that you made,
Oh,
and it would have been in the early 90s.
okay.
So I'm looking at that and saying, what ones do I not have? Do I have?
Well, you probably don't have the outer one and the inner one,
Okay,
I would guess.
okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, early 90s,
You
yeah.
must have made an 8 basket nest, and then,
Yeah, well, would you have bought a full 9 basket nest at the time? Were you? Oh, you would have bought whatever was
Yeah,
there. Okay.
I was on your list for a couple of, maybe 2-3 years. I'd come in, you gave me a card with the price and then
Yeah.
said it'll be 3 to 5, and it was, say, 3. And actually, you called me up. This is kind of funny because it was about the end of March.
Okay.
You called me up, and I said, and you said you had a nest, and that was available. And I said, I'm surprised that I'm up on the list already. I'm up already. And you said, well, do you want it? And yeah, do you want it? And the reason I'm up already is because you called a couple of people, and they didn't have the money because they had to pay their income tax. And you said, and I really need you to pay for it like right away because I have to pay mine.
Yeah.
That happens.
But yeah, that's what I.
That's why I know what time,
Yeah, yeah.
when it was. Because
Well,
it's like we're coming up to the beginning of April and everybody's got to move money. Yeah, exactly.
I always do covered baskets up to Christmas, and then I start my open baskets after Christmas. I do whatever I have, usually January into February. So, and every once in a while, it hasn't been for a while, but every once in a while, if I do nests for some reason, if you get into a rhythm, and it's one of those things, if I start doing 6 of these, let's say, and I start making all the bottoms and this and this and for some reason it doesn't work as well. But if I do a couple of nests, the pre-doing everything, because you got to do all the rims. I cut down a tree, obviously, and shape and bend and dry the rims and the handles and all the oak. If I start bulking them together, it really works well. And I can very efficiently do like 3 nests in like a month and a half. But if the same thing here, I just get bogged down. There's stuff that and turning the bottoms, if you got a lathe and you're turning the bottom, once you get the diameter, where the stop is, and it's easy to turn the bottoms. So if you're doing one, after you get the first one, you can get everything else. You can do 5, 6 of those very, very easily. So, did I answer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's my favorite.
So I assume at one point you would make them to sell them. Now I'm assuming everything is custom ordered. People come in.
Yeah.
And they say, this is what I want. And so at that point, you wish you had more control over, artistically what you were doing and selling, or do you feel like we're ordering the same baskets over and over again?
Yeah, that's basically what where I go to get wood. I've got so much wood that I bought over the Jenny knows. I got so much wood. I go to this woodworkers woodcraft, and they get some beautiful wood in, and I buy and I buy, but everybody wants ebony, rosewood, the maples,
Yeah, French walnut.
the quilted maple, bird's eye maple.
French walnut.
They're blondie woods. They work, but French walnut or claro is beautiful wood. The Mali is a beautiful wood, and I buy these pieces of wood and I put them aside, but I don't have any orders for them.
Yeah.
And I'm almost wishing that I could break the cycle and just make the baskets I want to do, put them on the shelf, and then sell them, because then I don't have to chase people for money and yada yada yada. Even if it isn't tax time.
We've started seeing a lot more Hollywood
That's for the knobs.
for the
The
knobs,
white-
or
yeah.
just for bases.
Yeah,
We're seeing it.
I'm unfamiliar with that. I wouldn't. That's a white wood, isn't it?
Very white.
Yeah. The problem with that to me is you pick up dirt and usage of the basket, and with a white wood it really shows. I know I used to put the maples on the bottom. It's a nice dark. It's a nice dense wood. It's strong, but it'll show the scratches and the dirt and so on. So I just haven't used it, and I probably would hesitate to use it for a bottom.
For a bottom, yeah.
For that reason. I always, for a long time, I was trying to match the tops and the bottoms of a basket. But if I'm using, I'm trying to think of a softwood. Well, a black walnut's a fairly soft wood. If I'm using black walnut, I wouldn't necessarily use it on the bottom because of the strength of the wood. And that kind of brings me to damages, because I'm repairing. the damages I've seen over the years. I've had a woman that took her basket, put it up in her closet. Unbeknownst to her, she had put it against the light bulb, and came in the next year with a burn spot. And another woman was at a wedding, and the table got crowded. She had her basket in the middle, and there was a little candle burn. Another woman came in. Puppies used to be hell on baskets. They would start chewing on a rim and stuff. It was just incredible. Cat was flossing its teeth with the peg, the string on the peg. It's been interesting. Our friend at home, there had been an accident out in front of the house, and she put her basket down. It was an open basket. She put her basket down next to her door and went to look at the tree. It wasn't, nobody got hurt bad or anything, but her husband didn't know the basket was, he starts backing up and he felt himself going up on the basket. And luckily he rolled off. It was an open basket, and all he did was get out, punch it out, and the last one was a woman was going someplace in their convertible, and she put her basket in where the soft top comes down. Husband put the top down. So it's if you use the right finish, and I always tell people to use shellac, you can fix most anything that happens in a basket. If you do polyurethane, it's awful tough. It makes the basket strong. I'd much rather fix a Reyes basket than a Gibbs basket, for example. Gibbs is just, they're well made. They last forever. But also the ivory front piece is, it looks nice, but it's got grain in it, and that can break, and then you're into trying to fit the replacement, and you got to cut the rim away and lift it up, and there's some good and some bad.
Jerry, why didn't you sign yours on the inside?
Because I saw signatures wear off on the bottom. So I figured it would be better to get filled with gum, lipstick, that type of stuff than, yeah. And I don't have good handwriting, so. And this is really, people that know, this is our signature, so I'll have people come in and they'll go, oh, I was such and such, and somebody came up, or I saw one of your baskets because of the handle. And I used to that reminds me of a story, that a woman came in and she was carrying her basket in the subway in Paris, she said, and there was a crowd on the subway, and she spotted away down the way a woman carrying a Lightship basket, and she tried to get to the woman to say hello to her, but she couldn't because of the crowd. So she just lifted up, raised the basket above her head, and yelled, "Nantucket!" And the woman that was carrying the other basket, "We Nantucket!" so
Yeah, that was great.
The stories that you hear, the feedback that you get from customers is very interesting.
What's funny is a lot of times my kids have their baskets and they'll be going places, and all of a sudden Jenny or Keen or somebody will go up and go, or Julie, and they'll say, "That's a Jerry Brown basket. You've got my dad's basket."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they go, "That's your dad?" You always run into people with it.
The basket usage here has kind of dwindled. I think they've become more of a collectible, decorative item than an actually functional item that people are using every day, which I think is kind of a shame, because they are totally functional, and they can be repaired, and they look better with usage. These well, you know, Judy's basket, Betsy's basket, you know, they look, oh, I heard this story once. I'm changing subjects. Reyes had made a basket for a woman, and she came in and picked it up, and she looked at it and she goes, oh, it's got a dark stripe on it. I don't know as I like that. I'd want it all uniform. And as we all know, there's probably, 20 or more different strands that all of them are going to age differently in the body of a basket. And Reyes, quick thinker, he says, I did that on purpose. If you're at a cocktail party and somebody starts to steal your basket or pick it up by mistake, you'll be able to recognize it by the stripe. So,
Yeah.
I used to tell people, because I don't do the best job of getting the hairs off it, that it's an old Nantucket tradition to, every time you pluck one off, make a wish. Anyways,
That is perfect. I kind of think maybe that's where we finish unless.
Any questions?
Questions?
I have one more question. So you do all the basket making, plus you do the carving, the quarter board, and then you also do the carving as well?
We do the
And that's-
quarter board and some of the carving. I do simple carvings. I like to think of it as cookie cutter carvings, you know, as long as I can get the shape, then I'm not a great carving. There's a lot of carvings today that are very elegant, that are done on mammoth or mastodon, whatever you want to call it. They come in from Malaysia, and there's a guy that buys mammoth tusk in Alaska, takes it to Malaysia, they do the carving, and then he can get it into the country because it's not elephant ivory. And then we can sell it. Well, hopefully we'll be able to sell it. And it's just fabulous detail. You know, he does turtles that they're done on both sides, and they look exactly alike. So I think there's probably a machine involved. But you know, they are good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, right there.
Jenny calves.
Jenny Cows, right there. She's excellent.
She's like your father.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Jenny went to art school.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming. I invite everyone to visit the Brown family's case, which is a really large, full one in the other room, and right behind it is actually a case with one of Jenny's baskets.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.